Hello and welcome to today's Art Path episode number 3. Okay, in this episode, we're going to be talking about art, drawing, and draftsmanship. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. What is art? Well, I see art as anything that is designed to be emotionally evoking. Alright, so that can be a car that's designed to look cool so that you would want to buy it, and you look at it and you can see, hey, that looks like it can go fast. It could be a banana duct taped to a wall. It can be a scribble drawing that is supposed to, scare people. It could be anything that you want it to be. Alright, so art is anything and everything. There is no limitation on art. So then, what is drawing? Is drawing inherently art? I would say drawing is a tool. And other tools are painting, sculpture, collage, and there's many more, digital painting. Those are all tools that you can use to make art, but they aren't necessarily art in themselves. They're just tools. All right? And drawing, what I'm doing here, this is drawing. It's making marks on paper. That's at the most fundamental, basic level. That's pretty much what drawing is. It's just making marks on paper and, making sure that you have fun with it. There's not a requisite to have fun with it, but it's nice to have fun with it. All right. So then what is draftsmanship? Okay. Well, if drawing is making marks on paper, then draftsmanship is the practice of making marks on paper, okay? It's that training of your hand and eye coordination so that way you can draw what you want to without any restriction from the arm, any resistance from the arm. You think it and your arm does it, all right? Because there are 3 parts to drawing, all right? If you have an arm, if you have an eye, and if you have a brain, then you can draw. Those are the 3 prerequisites to drawing. Now, maybe you can do it with an arm and you can use your feet. Maybe you only have one eye, or maybe you have no eyes and you're just kind of feeling around. Or maybe you have no brain. But as long as you have one of these, you can draw. All right. So the first barrier, though, is going to be your arm. Can you put down what you see, or can you put down what you think? This is the first barrier. All right. And we can master this, just like we can master the eye and the brain. So how do we do this? Well, first we need to understand how our arm works. So let's go ahead and pull up another canvas here. Nice, fresh, clean one. And let's draw a very basic arm. All right, so we have a shoulder up here, an elbow here, a wrist here, and then our hand attached to that wrist. Okay? Let's start from the first pivot point. This is the shoulder. If we move from the shoulder, we'll find that we have a very large range of motion. This gives us the biggest swing. Okay? We can draw really long lines from our shoulder because, again, look at this range. Now let's try it from our elbow. Let's see what that looks like. So again, this is the elbow. And here's the wrist, and here's our hand. Now our elbow can't move backwards. It can only move forward, all right? So let's see the range of motion for the elbow. See how much less range of motion the elbow has than the shoulder, but it still has quite a bit of range of motion, right? Let's look at the last one, the wrist. which is this little pivot point right here, the wrist. And then we got the hand attached to that. Let's rotate the wrist. Uh-oh. As we can see, there's a lot less movement that's able to happen here. So if we were to try to draw a long straight line with only our wrist, it would look something like this. Now we can kind of make it straight, but if we let our wrist do its full rotation, we'll see that it curves and it's not very long. Okay, now let's try it from our elbow. Instantly, it becomes much easier to control our long lines, and we can do these much longer. Look at this, it's even overlapping the wrist section here. So if the wrist is the smallest and the elbow is big, has a larger range of motion than the wrist, what about the shoulder? Well, we can see that, oh man, we can even go off our tablet here. And we can go across the entire table, depending on how long your arm is. And we don't even need to use the whole arm to go across the canvas. So, from this, we can infer that if we want to draw long lines, or smooth long lines, then we should use our shoulder. And then we adapt depending on the line we want to make, and we use whichever pivot point we want. Now, figuring out when you use them or what combination of joints you use, that's up to you. And that comes with time and practice. All right. So we have our understanding of range of motion, or ROM, for our arm. Okay. Now we're going to move into how to practice with what we just learned. Okay. So we have short lines that we're going to do from our wrist. We have medium lines, which we're going to do from our elbow. And then we have long lines, which we're going to do from our shoulder. Okay. And at first, just start off with just your wrist and find where your max range is most comfortable, and just scribble on your paper. It doesn't matter, you know. It doesn't have to look like anything. You're not making anything. Right now you're exploring the physical nature of your body. In this case, your wrist. Okay, maybe you want to throw in some fingers in there. All right, so that's our wrist. Now let's try it with the elbow. Let's see what that looks like. It's much easier to get those long lines or medium lines with our elbow. And the speed seems to increase too with our accuracy of the straight line. And again, play around with this. Figure out what your elbow can do. Okay? And now let's try our shoulder. Let's play around with the shoulder joint and see what we can do with that. Instantly. Look at that. You can make nice long lines, and you can do them fairly quickly too. Look at that velocity. Now let's use a combination of all of it. And we're going to finish this one off with the wrist. We're going to start the shoulder here and finish off with the elbow. We're going to start with the shoulder here and finish off with the wrist. We're going to start with the wrist and finish off with the shoulder. We're going to start with the wrist and finish off with the elbow. Just play around with this. Figure out what your body is able to do. What motor skills do you have? What do you not have? You know, take the time to figure this out now. You know, there's no better time than right now to figure out what you can do with your arm. You know, well, I'll keep it as straight lines here. We'll move on to curves here soon. All right, so let's get rid of this. And now that we have a better understanding of how our arm moves, let's see if we can practice our small, mediums, and longs in a more controlled fashion. Because again, it's good to loosen up using, very loose strokes, but we want to be able to replicate what we just did. Can we replicate what we just did? All right. And at what speed do we need to go through in order to replicate what we just did? And that's where we're going to be figuring all this out together, figuring out and exploring. Okay, so we're going to start with the small lines, and again, we're going to do it with the wrist. And we're going to do it not too fast, not too slow. We're going to find that nice sweet spot. All right, so that's a wrist line. And let's do an elbow line. Now let's do a shoulder line. All right, so we got our small, medium, long, wrist, elbow, shoulder. And now we're going to try to go over each of these lines using each of those associated joints with 7 more lines on top of that. So 7 more times. And we're going to see how well we can do that. All right. And if you want to, you can use a method called ghosting. What ghosting is, so let's write that down here. Ghosting. Ghosting is a method in which you hover the pencil over the paper without actually touching it. And you practice the line you want to make before you commit to it. Okay? So that's what ghosting is. So what we can do is we can ghost this line multiple times until we have a feel for it, and then we can go for it. Boom. We can do it again. Let's see. Let's try it again. That was number 2. Let's try number 3. Boom. 3. Okay, let's try 4th. 4. And what we're trying to do here is we want to start right on the point of the original line and finish right at the point of the end of that original line, okay? And we want to make sure that we eliminate any deviation from the center of those line of the line that we're making, okay? And this control over time will lead to speed. Okay, but speed is not the object of these exercises at first, okay? Speed comes later with practice. First, you just want to practice getting that control, getting that understanding of your range of motion, really sitting down and focusing, making sure you get those lines right. And if you do have a little wibbly wobbly, like here, that's okay. Over time, that wibbly wobbly will go down. And you won't fall down because of frustration. Okay? Alright, now let's try the shoulder one. The shoulder one is probably going to be the hardest because oftentimes we use our wrist and our fingers due to writing. So we're used to using our wrists and our fingers, but we rarely use our shoulder. So this is going to be a difficult one. Well, let's go ahead and give it a try. Go ahead and try ghosting it several times before you commit. Get a feel for it. Make sure your eyes are locked onto that line, following along where your pencil's going, and then you commit. Okay, and try it again. Notice here, it did not finish on the end point, and we have some wibbly wobblies here. That's okay. This next time, let's try going a little bit slower and see if we can control it a little bit more. Because again, we're going for precision, control. Over time, speed will develop. Oh, there we go. See, we got a little wibbly wobbly there. Let's try it again. Let's ghost it 2 times before we commit. And here we go. This one's looking pretty good. Oh, spoke too soon. We got a little wibbly wobbly here. All right, so we would practice each of those off of the original line. We do it 7 more times. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up to 8. Okay, so 8 lines in total. 1 to start, and then 7 on top. Okay? Now, we're going to do that same exercise, but for curves, or arcs. Okay? So we got small arcs, medium arcs, and long arcs. And again, you got your wrist, you've got your elbow, and then you've got your shoulder. Okay, let's get rid of those real quick. And now I'm going to give a quick demonstration of that. So here, wrist, small, and we're going to go over that 7 times. And if you find that your knuckles are turning white, or you're about to break your pencil because you're so tensed, or your shoulders are up close to your ear, take a moment to wiggle out those shoulders, relax. It's not life or death if you fail this. The whole point of doing this is to fail, because that's where you learn. Okay. Now let's do it from the elbow. A nice arc. We're going to do that again. Woo! Ah, almost got that one. Let's try it again. All right. I'm feeling a little bit of hesitation near the end on that one, so I want to make sure that I relax as I'm coming into that finish line. And again, drawing is pretty much a full body experience, all right? You want to make sure your posture is correct. You want to make sure you're sitting up nice and tall. No slouched shoulders. Keep your shoulders back. You don't want to develop any back problems while you're sitting at a table for the whole day. Okay? And make sure that you're just comfortable and nice and no tension. Okay? Really buckle down and keep your focus on what you're doing. Over time, the speed will come, but there's no rush to get there. Again, this long one is with the shoulder. I'm moving my entire shoulder. My elbow is locked, my wrist is locked, all that's moving is my shoulder. I'm developing that muscle memory, understanding what this line feels like. We got a lot of thickness happening over here. And again, the goal is to try to get down to a narrow bead. You want this all to follow the same line, but that takes a lot of time and practice. All right. Then we're going to move on to, so we got curves here. So we got straight lines up here. We got arcs or curves. And then we got waves or S-curves. Okay. And we're going to start with the wrist. We'll find that the wrist is pretty sharp. At least in this attempt it is. Oh, and I caught myself using my fingers. Again, keep your fingers locked. Keep your elbow locked. Keep your shoulder locked. Focus on just the wrist. And then we move on. Focus on just the elbow. Oh, there we go. There we go. Stay nice and relaxed. Have a loose grip on your pencil. You don't need to kill it. You're not stabbing the paper to death. You're just guiding the pencil gently across the surface, letting it glide, letting the graphite transfer onto the surface, or ink, depending on whether you're using a pen. Alright, now we're going to do the shoulder. Ooh, that was a wibbly wobbly. And if you need to go slower, go slower. But if you find that your lines are starting to look like this, you may be going too slow. So make sure you keep a nice constant pace all the way through. Not too fast, not too slow. Keep that control. Keep that focus. Again, we're going for precision. There are many other exercises that we can do that will help us get that flow, to get that energy. But for now, we're just looking to be able to control our arm. Because our arm is just as important as the tool we're using. Whether it's a pencil or a marker or a pen or chalk. Our arm is just as important as whatever medium we're using. Because without our arm, we wouldn't be able to use those. Okay, so those are waves and S-curves. And lastly, we have zigzags. Okay, now zigzag is just a bunch of straight lines connected together without lifting the pencil. Okay, and actually I did that with my shoulder, so I'm going to erase that and do that with my wrist. This one's difficult. I don't practice with the wrist, so we'll see. I use my fingers there. Let's see if I can do this without using my fingers. Okay, that's difficult, but we got this. There we go. Okay, let's see. All right. So that's our small one. Now let's try a medium one. This is with our elbow. Let's see how this looks. Ooh. Okay. All right, this one was a lot easier. Or maybe I take that back. No, yeah, a little bit easier than the wrist one. And you'll find what you're good at and what you're not good at. And I recommend that you practice all of it consistently, but really focus on your weaknesses. You know, it's good to have your strengths, but it's when you boost those weaknesses is where you're going to grow. All right, now let's try the long one, and this is what's going to be with the shoulder. So again, fingers are locked in place, wrist is locked in place, elbow is locked in place. The only pivot point that's moving is your shoulder. So that's 2 right here. Oh, that one's wiggly wobbly. Let's really focus down. Okay, and go. And go. Oh, okay, didn't finish off. Look at that. Really make sure you buckle down to focus. Ooh. When you first start, I recommend that you do this in a quiet room. You can have music on, but I also suggest try doing this without listening to music. Try doing this without any other distractions. And as you improve, add distractions. So maybe you have loud blasting music. Maybe you had too much coffee and you're really jittery. Maybe you're trying to talk and give a lesson while you're doing this. You know, switch it up, challenge yourself, and that's the way you're going to improve. Okay, so we have straight lines, curves, arcs, waves, S-curves, and zigzags. So once we're done with the superimpose, we can explore other ways of practicing these. Now, there's an infinite amount of ways of practicing these, and I really recommend that you find what you enjoy doing. Because, again, doing this 10 minutes a day is what's going to help you improve. Doing this for 6 hours a day is not going to help you improve if you don't continue to do it every day. So 10 minutes a day is better than 6 hours 1 day a week. All right. So another way we can practice straight lines is we can try to keep them parallel to each other. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and set the distance. I want the distance between the two lines to be about that thick. All right, I'm going to ghost it, and I'm going to commit. All right, now I'm going to replicate that distance and try it again. And try it again. And for these lines, I'm using a combination of my elbow and my shoulder. Okay, so that would be an example of parallel lines. And when you're doing them, try to make it so that they all line up at the same start point and they all finish at the end point, same end point. Okay, so you can see these later ones started to go overboard. Okay, we don't want that. We want to practice the control of keeping everything even and consistent. Because we can always, once we've mastered control, precision, and consistency, then we can always add deviation on our own terms, because then that would be our own choice. Okay, so parallel lines is another way to practice these. All right, you can connect dots. This is another exercise I like. It's a great way to practice ghosting too. So you start at this point, and you go to the next point, and you pick up your speed when you're ghosting. Right now I'm using my elbow. Then you commit. Okay, then you can come over here, swap it up, and commit. Oop, a little bit wibbly wobbly there. Try another one. This one I'm going to try. This is a difficult one for me. What I'm doing for this one is the movement is in my elbow and my shoulder, but I'm pulling my hands towards me. All right. This one's something I've been practicing for a while, but I still find it difficult. Ooh, all right, there we go. We got a little bit of bow that way. It's a little bit wiggly here, but that's fine. All right, and it's finding those weaknesses and tackling them a little bit at a time until over time you get better and you get used to it. Okay, so connecting dots is another way of practicing this. Connecting dots. And we're going to try another one. And it's the same concept as this, except now we're applying it to the curves. Right? So we're going to put 3 dots this time. And you can either try to do this all in one go to varying success, or you can do it the way Scott Robertson suggests in his book How to Draw, in which you only connect two dots at a time, but you lead it as if it's going to the next one. and then you finish it off. Okay. I haven't practiced it this way very much because I really like the one consistent line and then trying to get that down. But that one is much more difficult. There we go. All right, so we got 3-dot connection. All right, and that about covers it for our lines. Okay, so we're going to move it on to our circles and ellipses. So we're going to begin with circles. To practice our circles, what we want to do is we want to bring out the parallel lines again. All right. So we'll draw 3 parallel lines here. We won't do too many. And we're going to close off one side. Okay. So, excuse me. When we're practicing circles, we're going to do the ghosting method. But another name for the ghosting method is called truing up. Okay. Ghosting method, you'll find this in Scott Robertson's book, How to Draw. And the truing up is a term you'll find from Peter Hahn's The Dynamic Bible. Okay. And again, what that is you're hovering your pencil or your utensil, whichever you're using, over your paper, and you're practicing that movement before you commit to it. Okay, that's called truing up. So we're going to go ahead and get focused here. We're going to focus. Think about that circle you want to make. Commit. Okay, and we're going to do that over and over again. Now, some people will say that it's important that when you're starting, that you go over the circle multiple times. So I'll give an example here. Okay, see how we have 2 lines here? And then other people will say that no, you want to limit that and you want to just keep it to one consistent line. Okay. What I say is do whatever you're comfortable with. Okay. If you're first starting out and you want to keep it and you want to do multiple lines over the same circle, do that. If you want to try to get to a single line, do that. And again, play around. There's no rules to this, although you can make your own rules. So from other people, I've learned that some rules you can think about for here when practicing your circles is you want to keep your circles inside the lines and you want all 4 points to be touching the adjacent line. So for example, this line here overlaps the start by a little bit. So that would be wrong in the rules that I'm making up for this, that we're making up this. All right, same here. This goes over this line, so this would be wrong. All right, but this one kisses this line just nicely. And so does the start of this one. So we would say we succeeded 2/4. All right, and we create little rules like that because again, there are no rules, so you can create your own. And this is just for you, just to test your abilities. That way you have some measurable way of seeing your improvement. Okay, so we're going to ghost again and commit. Ghost again and commit. Ghost again and commit. Ghost again and commit. And you do that all the way around, okay? And you do that for both of them. Okay, so that's how you would practice circles. Okay, and you can make it fun too, even more fun by adding arcs or waves inside it, and that way you have variation in the size of the circles that you're creating. And if you have a whole page of this, it looks pretty cool after a while. And I'll give some examples of what those look like at the end of the video, along with links to all this additional information so you can do your own research if you want to. Which I highly recommend that on top of this video, you continue researching if you're interested and develop your own thoughts and biases towards drawing like I have. It's important. All right? Okay, so that's how we practice circles. Now let's move on to ellipses. So what is an ellipse? Well, the common response I get when I ask my students what an ellipse is, they'll say, oh, it's an oval. Okay, well, an oval is a shape that doesn't have too many rules bound to it. So this is an oval. This is an oval. This is an oval. It's a round shape, okay? It has no corners. But an ellipse has rules, okay? And you can see that there's a difference between the ellipses I'm making and the ovals that I've already made. Okay? Now let's observe these ellipses and see if we can figure out what those rules are together, okay? Well, first of all, these ovals, they look wobbly, right? They have no consistency, but they're still considered ovals. These ellipses, on the other hand, are consistent, and you can start to recognize a pattern here. One of the patterns is if you cut it in half through the shortest distance, both halves of that ellipse are equal. And if we do that over here, we'll see that that remains true, that they're like mirrored halves. And if you were to take a piece of paper and fold it along that shortest distance through an ellipse, both halves would be mirrored. Okay. Now this line has a name. The name of this line is the minor axis. Okay. And again, that is the shortest distance through an ellipse. Okay. Now there's another line. It's not nearly as important, but it's still good to know. The other line, if the minor axis is the shortest, the longest one is called the major axis. And the major axis goes through the longest distance through an ellipse. Okay. So we got the minor and the major. Okay, so what else makes an ellipse special? Well, an ellipse, unlike an oval, is actually a circle that has been tilted in perspective. And we'll learn more about perspective in the following videos. But if we were to take a square here, okay, and if we were to imagine this piece of this square as a piece of paper, and we drew a circle on it, and then we were to take that paper and we're pinching it right here. So our fingers are right here, we're pinching it. And then we let the wind blow the paper that way. And the paper starts to shift into the distance, except for where we're holding it. We'll see that that circle also tilts and it becomes an ellipse. And the minor axis here and the major axis here are still relevant and present. Okay? We'll get more into the perspective part, but we're going to keep it simple. All you need to know for right now is that the difference between an ellipse and an oval is that an ellipse is a tilted circle, and it has the rule that the shortest distance through that ellipse is called the minor axis, and that line separates mirrored halves. Okay? So that's the only thing you need to know for right now. We'll dive in more in the perspective lesson. Okay, so how do we practice ellipses? So for circles, we did the chewing up, and we just filled up parallel line boxes full of circles. For ellipses, it's very similar. So first, we want to get down that motion of an ellipse, okay? Because it's equal balance on both sides, and it takes a lot of practice. Even professionals have a hard time getting ellipses down. These are something that you're going to have to practice every day just to keep them somewhat consistent, okay? So the way we're going to do that is we're just going to ghost a lot, okay? You want to keep both halves equal. And you might be noticing something here. Another thing through observation. Notice how all these ellipses are different sizes. Some are skinny, some are fat. Now, the width of an ellipse is called the degree, okay? And the degree equals the width. Now, we'll go more into what that insinuates, again, later in the perspective video. But for now, just know that your ellipses can be any size, okay? They can be large, small, have a large width, or have a small width, or a degree, rather. Okay. Once you get that motion down, you're going to start to identify where that minor axis is, okay? And when you're drawing it, you might find that your minor axis lines up with the position of your arm. So if your arm is right here, so here's your hand, okay? And your arm's here, and you're drawing from the shoulder, right? Because you're drawing from the shoulder. You're drawing from the shoulder, right? Yep. You're drawing from the shoulder. Okay? Yeah? All right. Understood. Okay? And you have your pencil here, and you have your paper here. Boom, 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 boom. The arm, this part of the arm, is more likely to line up with the angle of that ellipse minor axis. And when you get comfortable, at first you may need to rotate your paper to do this, so that way you can change the angle of your ellipse. Over time, you'll be able to feel that minor axis in your hand. So in this area right here, where this is your thumb and here's your index finger, you'll start to feel this line, this imaginary minor axis that cuts through your arm, and you can change the direction of that in any way you want. So an example here is I want to put a minor axis here and then draw an ellipse on that minor axis. You feel it in your hand or in that space between your thumb and your index finger, and you commit to it. And again, you true up and then you commit. You true up and commit. But at first, you're going to be using your elbow as your guiding. Okay? Drawing from the shoulder and then using the length of your arm as your guiding factor. And then again, minor axis. All right. So get used to drawing the ellipse, identifying where the minor axis is. And once you're comfortable with that, move on to drawing a line and then feeling ellipses on that line, using that as the minor axis. So here it is. Again, this is the minor axis. The ellipse falls on that minor axis. Both halves are equal. Commit. And again, commit. Let's do a wider degree this time. Okay, let's do a narrow one. Let's do a wide one. Let's do a really wide one, actually. Let's do medium-sized one. And let's try narrow one again. Let's try narrow one again. There we go. See how my ellipses are starting to go up though? You want to make sure that the minor axis falls right in the half, like this first one, okay? So once you understand how to place an ellipse on the minor axis, we'll stop there. That's all you need to practice for now until we get to the perspective lessons. But do pages of these. They're really fun once you start to understand and get that motion down. And once you start to get that feeling in your hand, then it gets super fun to do. And they're no longer as scary to do. Nowadays, I find it more scary to place an ellipse on a predetermined line versus drawing a freehand ellipse without any predetermined line. But that's just because I need to practice this again some more until I get used to that again. All right. So that is circles, ellipses. We're almost done. We're going to move on to a different topic now that we understand straight lines, arcs, waves, zigzags, circles, and ellipses. We're going to move on to pressure. So what is pressure? Pressure is the sensitivity or the amount of force you push down with on the pencil in order to create darker or thicker lines, okay? Now, you can put a lot of pressure at the beginning and then taper it off over time. Or you can start off very thin and work up your pressure slowly. And you can do many combinations of this. You can start off heavy, go light, then go heavy again. You can go light, go heavy, and then go light again. You'll see here that that's a very big difference. And again, it's that practicing of gradual pressure change that is important to practice. That way you can get a better feeling of the pencil as an extension of yourself rather than it just being a stick of wood. Okay. And we're going to erase this real quick because I want to talk about how you grip your pencil. We haven't talked about this yet, but we're going to do a little bit of that now. Okay, so we have our hand here. We have a very crude hand. Okay, so this is your palm. You have your thumb. You have your index fingers, or index finger, rather. You have your middle finger. And then you have your ring finger and your pinky. Okay. What I like to do is I like to place the pencil on top of my middle finger between the last knuckle and the tip of the finger. So I place it right here. And then I balance it between the knuckle of my index and the knuckle of my thumb. Okay, so let's put an eraser on this. Okay. All right, and we got our pencil. It's more like a calligraphy pen. So we got our pencil or utensil balanced between the tip of the finger and the last knuckle of our middle finger. Then what we're going to do, let's draw another hand here, is since we have our middle finger here, okay, and our pencil is balanced here, again, between the last knuckle and the tip of the middle finger, we're going to have the index finger come over here and hug the top. And it's going to apply gentle pressure going this way. And we're going to apply the same amount of pressure with our thumb in this direction. Okay, so what we have here is we have our middle finger, which is really thick for some reason. Okay, which is holding the main weight of the pencil. And then we have the index finger and the thumb gently caressing the pencil on both sides. Okay. Oftentimes I find when I start to get tense, my fingers, my index and my thumb start to shift upwards. So that, let's say this is the pencil here. Instead of being on the sides, they start to move towards the top, and they both press against each other here, and they press down. That is not something you really want, because it's going to make pressure control a lot more difficult. So if you find that you're getting tense and your fingers are starting to touch on the top of the pencil and push down on top of your middle finger, that's going to add a lot of strain to your middle finger, and it's going to make it more difficult to control pressure. So again, hug the side of the pencil. With your index finger and your thumb. And then balance the weight on your middle finger. Okay. And with that, you can control the pressure because, again, the movement is in your shoulder. So if the movement's in the shoulder, then the pressure is in the fingertips. Okay. So you can move your shoulder, and your fingers will keep the pencil at a certain distance from the paper, so you can draw really light or you can draw really heavy. But all again, the movement is in the arm, the pressure is in the fingers. Okay, And so practice holding the pencil this way. Again, you can hold the pencil in whatever way you want to, but I highly recommend that you hold the pencil like this. This is how I hold my pencil, and it took me a while to get used to drawing like this. All right. But this is going to give you greater control of your pressure sensitivity with whatever medium you're using, okay? And just practice going from thick to thin, thin to thick, thick to thin to thick, and then thin to thick to thin, okay? And every which way combination that you can think of, just practice that, get used to it. Feel the vibrations in your fingertips as it glides on the paper, all right? Feel that change, and you'll find that different papers will vibrate the tip of your pencil in different ways, and that's a fun experience when you first experience that. But yeah, okay. So that's pressure. So we pressure down, and with pressure, we're also going to talk a little bit about value. We're going to quickly go over value. We're going to go over value more later on, but for now, we're just going to discuss value as going from dark to light. Okay, so it's similar to the pressure, but in this case, we're going to have multiple lines that gradually get lighter and further away from each other to create the illusion of light to dark. So we got dark to light. And we can do this pattern in many ways. It's not limited to downward strokes. You can do diagonal strokes. Okay. You can do scribbles. And then gradually drift that off into very light. Okay. There's many different ways you can do this. If you want to start to go a little bit more advanced and include textures, you can block in some nice textures here. And let's do pebbles. Let's just get some shapes in here. It doesn't matter. Okay. And you can gradually shift those to lighter versions. Okay. So practice going from dark to light, or light to dark. Get a feeling for that sensitivity with your fingers. Use your shoulder, use your elbow, and use your wrist. You'll determine which one's the best for whatever it is that you're doing at that time. But just get used to controlling your utensil as if it's an extension of yourself. Okay? Get used to practicing your draftsmanship, because understanding good draftsmanship is going to make the later concepts so much easier. Because again, drawing, this is drawing right here. This is drawing. Marks on paper is drawing. Everything else is just concepts that you add on top of that. Okay? All right. Thank you for watching this video. Following this is going to be some time-lapse examples of what you can do with these exercises. Again, make them fun, make them enjoyable. If you start getting frustrated or annoyed, take a break. Again, you're not committed to spend hours doing this. 10 minutes a day of this is fine. Just make sure you do it every single day. Set aside 10 minutes aside every day. All right. Following the time lapse, I'm also going to have some links to other videos that you can look at for additional information, or just to hear the same information from a different point of view, as well as some book links to Amazon on books I highly recommend that you get and check out. All right. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Have a great day and keep practicing.